Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Mortal Kombat video. I really hope you have been enjoying the coverage so far. It's been really refreshing to come back after a long while and talk about all things Mortal Kombat related and what is coming next for the series. With that said, naturally, with a new game on the horizon, thanks David Zaslav, there are many concerns surrounding what 12 really does bring to the table here, especially in terms of story and narrative. Something that has largely been the center of the NetherRealm era of games, seamlessly blending gameplay to narrative and vice versa, since its Requel with Mortal Kombat 9, re-establishing the franchise by keeping its roots in the same foundation, but take it in a very different direction. Something we will quickly learn and see. Now, in saying that, it has not been smooth sailing. It has been quite troublesome, if anything. So, in today's video, we will be analyzing Mortal Kombat's narrative history, the issues that have been a huge problem for the reboot trilogy, and what NetherRealm should do as a team going forward in order to fix these narrative issues, especially with the new ideas that are presented here and the new future the series does pose. But before we do begin, as always, if possible, I would really appreciate it if you could all give this video a thumbs up. It's a small and minor thing, but trust me when I say it goes a long way here. And a quick reminder, if you like what we do here and wish to stay up to date with all things news, story, and lore related, please don't forget to subscribe, as well as tick that bell, because with every day that passes, it means that we get closer to that Mortal Kombat 12 reveal trailer. So, let's get right into things. Now, first off, the big topic is story. As briefly mentioned, Mortal Kombat 9 was a soft reboot of sorts, blending elements of Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3, whilst applying an, at the time, modern popular twist on a series reboot. Whilst most definitely quite controversial in its overall execution, both narratively and of its literal cast, it did allow NetherRealm to have more leeway in its following installment to set up a new status quo, a new generation. So, for Mortal Kombat X, they decided to roll in a new era of characters, ones that strongly centered around the special forces and the second generation of heroes, and much like the previous game, did loosely cling on to the original frame of Mortal Kombat 4, but in its climax, we were left with a Dark Raiden, a new generation of heroes, and the possibility of our twisted former protagonists, now in the form of a deadly alliance. So the future was familiar, yet unpredictable in its execution. There was an element of excitement due to the unpredictable nature of things. But our predictions couldn't have been any more wrong. Instead of going for what was familiar, or even in this case, safe, 11 chose to instead focus on more of a time travel based story, casting out the new generation and bringing back what could be seen as the golden roster of Mortal Kombat 9. So, unfortunately, it made a lot of build-up in between Mortal Kombat X and 11 feel largely unsatisfactory. What really didn't help was the sudden introduction of Kronika, a titan that existed above the Elder Gods and was seemingly on par with the One Being, but she was never foreshadowed before. So the Dark Raiden foreshadowing was very quickly thrown out, and the idea of this deadly alliance was, at best, sidelined. 11's overall story is a bit of a mixed bag, and whilst I personally found Aftermath to be a fantastic story, as it was unpredictable in its execution, it is all largely built on the skeleton and framework of 11. So if you didn't like 11's base story, naturally, the chances of you liking Aftermath wasn't particularly too high. Along with this, the Sindel retcon did rub fans the wrong way, although I will say it was largely to the benefit of Aftermath's overall story. And seeing as we are on the topic of retcons, characters like Scarlet had a completely altered origin, and even the MKX comic book series, which was designed to bridge Mortal Kombat 9 to X, was completely retconned. So I think the relationship between fans and the studio has been largely strained, especially considering how the lack of a single linear story keeps being thrown into a wood chipper. Plus, it makes every history of video I made for Mortal Kombat both wrong and inaccurate in so many ways. Thanks, NetherRealm. Really appreciate my hard work just being cast into the abyss. So with that said, how do we fix this? Well, first things first, what NetherRealm desperately need from their writing team is a greater endgame or overall arching narrative. The greats like Shao Kahn and Onaga met expectations because they were foreshadowed just before the next game debut. We have already proven and shown that characters like Kronika just dropping out of nowhere does not work for the franchise. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, Titans on paper sound like a great concept, especially when it comes to expanding the greater universe and lore of Mortal Kombat beyond what we know of the gods and the One Being. But their biggest crime is that we don't know the Titans' place in the Mortal Kombat universe. We don't know where they stand in between or above the One Being, as there has been conflicting answers. Whilst the inherent nature of mystery is great, there has to be a calm before the storm, an idea before its physical conception. So if they are going into this game with a reboot in mind, I think it's best that they plot out the big bads beforehand, setting up future antagonists and villains through even arcade ladder endings. The best and old school way of setting up concepts and ideas that do not conflict with the main overarching narrative. It's so simple and effective. Now, one of the main problems at the moment is that we do not have a clear consensus of what is the true definitive ending. Because if you actually really think about it, there's 3 possible endings here. Aftermath's Great Kung Lao ending, Shang Tsung's Dark Timeline ending, and the Liu Kang and Kitana reboot, which was abandoned for Aftermath's story, but still is technically canon, due to how the whole multiverse multiple ending scenario works. So yes, this ending could actually reign to be true. Whilst both Lao and Shang's ending feel like 2 definitive clear paths, it does end the overarching story, whilst still having the wiggle room for us to theorize and play with possible ideas. But the very same thing can be said with the Liu Kang and Kitana ending, which also does not have to deal with the luggage and baggage of being a period piece, or being obstructed by a literal giant evil Shang Tsung. It is its own definitive ending that they could very easily branch off in any direction they want. Hell, they could even just pick up right where they left off, if they want to play it safe. So essentially, there is always the possibility that they could pull another Mortal Kombat 11 on us, and not give in to what was foreshadowed in both the Lao and Shang Tsung ending. So with that said, how would I fix this? As someone unbelievably engrossed in its lore, who's documented their stories and covered every single character from start to finish, what would benefit the NetherRealm team going forward? Well, please, for the love of God, please, no more multiple endings. As much as I loved Injustice 2's overall story, I do think the multiverse stuff is inherently more in DC's DNA than that of Mortal Kombat. I just don't think it really works unless it's an arcade ladder ending, which at best can be seen as a what-if scenario. Time travel, narratively, is just a giant headache that can really hurt a story if it's too dependent on it. So if you're rolling in multiple endings with multiverse theory, essentially, it kind of loses its coherent nature. And this actually ties into another criticism I do here: the chapter system. And whilst I do think this point is definitely valid, I think Mortal Kombat as a whole, at least right now, needs a linear form of storytelling in order to establish this new era of storytelling, as jumping from set piece to set piece, from character to character, can just straight up be jarring. So something simple and easy would be the best way to go here. Thus, I think the chapter system should return, but maybe be tweaked in some way, like how they gave you the option to pick one of two different fighters during a specific scenario. Now, I want to be very clear here. I love the NRS saga of games. It's done so much, so well for the series for a long time. But from a storytelling standpoint, in the last few years, it's felt like there isn't an overall creative vision, but instead a multitude of different ideas picked and chosen to be in these self-contained installments. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but in a series of games that has gone past its 10 mark, it's kind of impossible to just pretend like the previous games didn't happen, especially when the world and characters are reoccurring. If I'm entirely honest, whilst I love the mythos of Mortal Kombat, I don't think the series should really go beyond the Elder God parameters, as clearly it only seems to create issues for the narrative and make a lot of things contrived. If there is a strong foundation to build upon, I think it's possible to tackle these topics. But with all of the retcons, sudden galactic level threats, and time travel, it's kind of become a mess now. I think that's going forward, at least for a while, it might just be best for Mortal Kombat to go back to basics. Keep its feet on the ground and keeping things simple before becoming more ambitious. With the large table 11 has set out, it's hard not to be intrigued yet worried by what Mortal Kombat 12 does present. But I do really want to stay optimistic yet critical of NetherRealm's approach to this game. 11's main narrative simply wasn't it for me, but I can only hope for a better future, not just for myself, but for us as Mortal Kombat fans as a whole. I love this franchise and absolutely adore it, but I just think after so many years of building this foundation, rebooting it and restarting it, time and time again with all of these retcons, has become unbelievably jarring. My dream is that going forward, we get a coherent form of storytelling that will re-establish the franchise in the mainstream going forward. So with that said, do you yourself have any particular thoughts on where 12's story will go? With the multiple different endings I've laid out, which one would you like to see come to fruition? Please do comments down below, as I'd love to hear what you all have to say. But for now, everyone, that has been it for me. So as always, everyone, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting as we all eagerly await for that Mortal Kombat 12 reveal trailer. Take care, everyone. I'll see you all soon.